We're live.
Carl,
Yeah.
Carl,
Yes, Lorraine.
I just wanted to tell you that I didn't get back to you because I got the answers I needed on my end. So I just wanted to let you know that.
We are live and streaming.
Pardon me?
We're live and streaming.
Okay.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us in the boardroom and those joining us via Zoom for the Monterey Salinas Transit District Board of Directors meeting of July 11th, 2022. During today's meeting, just as a reminder, the public does have several options to participate. You can join in person or conference room. Members of the public are required to wear a face covering and adhere to social distancing. Joining us here. You can also join us via Zoom. The meeting ID is located on the agenda, and it is 845-0083-6234. The passcode is 652252. You can also join us via telephone by calling 1-669-900-6833. Thank you again, Board of Directors, and also to the public for joining us today. I would like to call this meeting to order at 10:01. And again, the public meeting of the Monterey Salinas Transit District Board of Directors meeting of July 11th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Okay, City of Carmel by the Sea,
Here.
City of Delray Oaks,
Here.
City of Gonzales,
Here,
City of Greenfield, City of King City,
Present.
City of Marina,
Here.
City of Monterey,
Here.
City of Pacific Grove,
Here.
City of Salinas,
Here.
City of San City, City of Seaside,
Here.
City of Soledad,
Here.
County of Monterey. Okay, Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Now we'll call our Pledge of Allegiance. For those that are joining us here in the boardroom and those at home, please stand up and place your right hand over your heart to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Galgideotti, can you join us? Can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yeah, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America,
and
to
to
the
the republic
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we will have review of highlights for the agenda, for today's agenda, and I will turn it over to Mr. Sedora.
Thank you, Chair. On the agenda, on the consent agenda, among the usual items, please note that we are disposing of 7 MST owned vehicles that have reached or exceeded their useful life. We do offer these vehicles up to local nonprofits and agencies who wish to use them. And we will transfer a title to them at the low price of $1. And those items that are not transferred over to local nonprofits will then be sent to auction where we receive very little, well, slightly more than $1. You'll also have a public hearing on item 5.1 regarding proposed changes to our bus fares to be implemented at a later date, perhaps in conjunction with our better bus network, which is the outcome of our comprehensive operational analysis. We also have a procurement policy to be approved, and then a contract to be awarded for a fixed facility analysis for the Salinas Operations and Maintenance Facility, which is nearing the end of its useful life. And we are seeking, starting the first steps along the lines of looking at upgrading, replacing that facility at some point in the future. You do have a closed session on the agenda later to conference with the labor contract negotiations. And that concludes my review of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Sidorik. So we'll move on to item number 2 on our agenda, which at this time is public comments on matters not on the agenda. So at this time, any member of the public may address the Board of Directors on items that are not appearing on the agenda. Please note speakers do have 3 minutes. Please be brief and to the point. The board will not necessarily respond immediately, but may choose to follow up individually or through staff. Also, as a reminder, if you're going to make public comments on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature that's located at the bottom of your screen so we can unmute and recognize you. So at this time, do we have any public comments on matters not on the agenda?
Appears that we do.
We have 1 public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Jim Fink, and my new address is 1320B South Main Street, PMB 244, Salinas, California 93901. My new telephone number is 831-512-8519. And I wish to speak to a couple of things. One, the disappearance of the writer's guides. For people like myself that don't regularly have internet access, it's an extreme difficulty trying to figure out what bus is going to be where, when. And also the format of the writer's guide. And I have with me Santa Cruz Headways that actually contains MST 28 and 29 timetables and publishes about 4 times a year. But I'd sure like to see the writer's guide come back and be available like it used to be. I'm even willing to pay a small sum to purchase the same. Secondly, I wanted to speak to the disappearance of some of the routes, especially the 43. I'm a member of St. Ansgar's Lutheran Church and have been since August of 2002. St. Paul's Episcopal Church is just a block away from us on San Miguel and Pajaro. We're on the southwest corner of San Joaquin and Pajaro. Bus stop currently observed only by the 95 Williams Ranch line is at Pajaro and San Miguel at the stop sign. And that 95 is only available every 2 hours. And on Sunday, it doesn't even run until 9:55. Our service at St. Ansgar starts at 10 a.m. So I can guarantee if I end up having to take the 95, I'm going to be late to church. So 8:30, I have to get the 61 down South Main and leaves me with a 25-minute walk to church from Nissen in South Main. So I'd like to see the 43 back. I'd like to see service back to San Jose, especially with the new Berryessa BART station. Mayberry and Berryessa Road. I think it's high time that the service to San Jose come back. I also miss the Templeton leg of this Paso Robles service. So I'd like to see service come back.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. We really appreciate all of your comments. Thank you for that. We'll make sure. I know we haven't the writer's guide haven't necessarily disappeared. I know there has been some changes, and I know we are working on the Better Bus Network, and so that does address some of those issues that you are concerned with. So we will have staff connect with you and share some of those changes that are occurring to the network and also some of your concerns. Thank you. At this time, are there any other members of the public that'd like to make public comment at this period, at this time? Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and members of the MST board. You may recognize me, but I'm in a different role. My name's Sloan Campy, and my new role is Transportation Manager at CSU Monterey Bay, formerly the Planning Manager here. I am here today just to say hello and to also inform you that CSU Monterey Bay has a new Department of Transportation, of which I am heading that, or managing it, I should say. It's a department of one right now, but we are very much looking forward to strengthening the partnership with MST through this department. And I am committed to being informed and being providing any information as necessary to MST to keep our partnership with CSU Monterey Bay, the largest university in the region, going. Thank you.
Thank you, Sloan.
Thank you, Mr. Campy, for that, and congratulations again, and thank you. We look forward to continuing with that partnership with CSUMB. Okay, any other comments, public comments at this time on matters not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any here joining us at the chambers. Are there any public comments from anyone on Zoom? I'm not seeing anyone.
I do not see anyone
Okay.
either.
Okay, so seeing that there are no other public comments at this time, then we'll close the public comments portion of the agenda, matters not on the agenda. We'll move forward to the consent agenda for today. We have items 3-1 to 3-7. Any members of any board directors would like to pull any items from the consent calendar for further discussion or comment?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Emilio,
Yes, I'd like to pull 3.5.
which one?
3.5 on the financial reports.
Okay, 3-5 on financial reports. Okay, do we have any other members of any other board of directors that want to pull any other items on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Let me ask the public if there's any comments from any members of the public that want to pull any items from the consent agenda. Okay, I see none.
I got a question about one of the items.
So Mr. Fink, at this time, do you want to pull an item? Do you have the item number? If you-
I was looking at, not seeing, for it is on this handout at, let's see.
Okay, well, you,
3-6.
okay, so we have 3-5 for Mr. Director Emilio and 3-6 for Mr. Fink. If there's no other items on the agenda, do you want to move forward with commenting on 3-5? We can approve the others at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with items 3-1 through 3-4 and 3-7.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, so the motion is to approve all consent items with the exception of 3-5 and 3-6 at this time.
Correct.
And the motion was made by Director Gagliotti.
Yes, correct.
And who made the second motion?
Yeah.
Second by Director
Albert.
Albert.
Okay, thank you. Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Aye.
Director Worthy,
Yes.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Emilio,
Yes.
Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Chico,
Who is it?
Pacheco? Are you on mute?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Director Velasquez
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Okay, great, motion passes. So we'll move on then to the two items that were pulled, 3-5. I'll start with Director Emilio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a simple, maybe it's not a simple question, but on page 25, under the composition of the ending balance, actually, there's two questions. On the money markets, there's a list of several money markets. Are those, have those changed in dealing with the economy? I'm just curious if the money markets have lowered, or are they about the same? I'm just wondering, Carl, would you be able to answer that, or there we go, Lisa,
Hi.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Lisa Reinheimer, Assistant General Manager. Are you referring to, the interest rate that we get from the money market? It's largely stayed the same. There's not much. The better rate that we get is through the LAIF, the state's program, and it's slightly better, but better is always better. It's not like 20 years ago, that's for sure.
Okay, I just was that was more of a curiosity. Several people that I know that their money markets have gone a little bit south. So the other question is Lisa, it says the composition of the ending balance, that the total balance is what it says. We have over 40. Is it 40 million? Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those were the two questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Director Emilio. So now we'll move on to item 3-6, and this was pulled by Mr. Fink. Mr. Fink, do you want to ask your questions?
Yes, I do. My question has to do, it says month of March of 2022. So does that mean that April, May, June, and forward are still on hold? Particular reason for my question, I had one of my MST wallets containing not only my MST ID, but also my Comerica Bank MasterCard, my AAA and AARP membership cards, my Salinas and Monterey Public Library cards, and my Medi-Cal Medicare Benefits ID card. We were all in that card holder. It disappeared at the Sacramento Valley rail station on Wednesday, the 22nd of June. And I was suspecting that because of the MST ID, that sooner or later it might in fact be mailed to MST. And I was concerned with, if that happens, how do I find out and recover it?
Mr. Fink, thank you so much for that question. And yes, and then note your question in terms of April, May, and June. So those are pending. The report that you see is for March 2022. So staff will make sure that we get your contact information as you addressed and provided that today. So in the event that it is mailed to MST, that we get that to you, and as well as hopefully connect you with the Sacramento Valley Rail Station to find out what their lost and found processes as well. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, if there's any further comments, can I get a motion to approve items 3-5 and 3-6?
Move to approve.
Second.
Carbone, second.
So we have a first by Director Emilio and a second by Director Gagliotti. Yeah, I'm gonna get it right. Gagliotti. Can we get roll call, please?
Okay, Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Yes.
Director Worthy,
Yes.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
Director Emilio,
Yes.
Director Rivera,
Yeah.
Director Carbone,
Aye.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
Director Velasquez,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Consent 3-5 and 3-6 are approved.
Great, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is recognitions and special presentations. Today, we do have 2 recognitions and then a staff report. So we'll move on to July 2022 Employee of the Month. And this presentation will be provided by Mr. Tutubuki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. My name is Norm Tuitubuki. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for MST. Recognizing our Employee of the Month for July 2022, Coach Operator Anna Villanueva. Anna began her career as a coach operator with Monterey Salinas Transit District back in 2015. So she's got 7 years of experience with us. As a professional coach operator, she has consistently and continually demonstrated the skills and professionalism that we strive to instill in all of our employees. She has received numerous attendance and safety awards throughout her 7-year career. Anna was previously recognized as the Employee of the Month, the same month, well, July of 2021, so about a year previously. Earlier this year, and the reason why that we are recognizing her for this accomplishment, one of their supervisors had observed her in the field. While she was operating the line 20, heading to Monterey from Salinas, she picked up an elderly customer at the Salinas Transit Center. Upon her arriving at Sand City Station, she realized that the customer was having some issues cognitively. During her conversation with the customer, she recognized the problem and deboarded her coach and sat with the customer. While she was sitting and providing comfort and safety for the customer, she recognized a Sand City police officer who was driving by. Both Anna and the Sand City police officer sat with the customer to continue providing comfort and to continue ensuring that her safety was met. Eventually, the police officer released Anna and she returned to duty. Anna went above and beyond her normal duties, an effort that MST appreciates and recognizes through this award. Anna's efforts continue to enable MST and its employees to achieve its mission and to fulfill its obligation to the communities that we serve. It's a pleasure to recognize Anna. She continues to be an excellent employee and we appreciate all that she does. Please join me in thanking Anna and recognizing her as the Employee of the Month for July 2022. She's not able to join us today, but much appreciated.
Well, thank you. Please make sure you extend our gratitude to the work that she does, her commitment to MST, her commitment to safety for our customers, and obviously just a true demonstration of leadership, being able to assist the elderly person and being able to stay there, and just the compassion. I think it's just a demonstration of who we are as MST and part of our culture. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to any board of directors that wants to make any comments in regards to our recognition for Mrs. Ana Villanueva today.
Yes, I would like to say something, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Director Martinez.
So I just want to say, I know she's not present, but if you could please let Anna know that thank you for going above and beyond, because it's rare for human kindness nowadays, especially when you have a busy schedule. And I know sometimes our jobs are hard and we have this life where we're occupied, but just for her taking the time and you know, acknowledging those signs that something was wrong with this rider, that says a lot about who her integrity and the person that she is. So on behalf of all of MST, just thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martinez. Very well said. Director Worthy.
I just wanted to say that when I read that she was Employee of the Month, I said, I recognize that name because she has been here before. So that just tells you what kind of a person she is and how dedicated she is. So I agree with board member Martinez. Thank you so much for your continued diligence and care for our passengers. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Worthy. And then Director Carbone.
Yes, am I unmuted?
No, we can hear you. Director Carbone.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate Anna as well for taking the time to notice a situation because, you know, as one of our directors said earlier, that in the busy times that we're having, you know, in our schedules and everything, that it's great to, you know, to stop and do what you feel is important. And in that situation, that she took the time to sit with this rider and to, you know, flag down police to help with that. So I also would like to know if you could recall what officer that was in Sand City, so I could applaud him as well.
Will do. Yeah, I'll look at the records. I'm sure we can pull that up and provide that information for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Carbone. Okay, and I don't see any other hands up. So yes, thank you so much. Please extend our congratulations on behalf of MST to Mrs. Ana Villanueva for just her leadership and her demonstration of compassion. And this time, as obviously was said, where it's been really difficult, and to be able to notice individuals that are in stressful situations. Obviously, as we know, our drivers are tasked with much more than just driving the bus. It's really understanding who the customers are and being able to have that compassion toward them. So thank you so much. Thank you. So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is recognize 35 years of service. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity again. Good morning again, and thank you so much. Fernando Manansala is the employee that we are recognizing with 35 years of experience, 35 years of service to MST. Fernando started his career back in 1987, back when gasoline was less than $1. With 35 years of experience and mechanical expertise, he is considered to be the go-to person in the shop, in the maintenance department for all things related to vehicle maintenance. Fernando has taken many of our new hires under his wing, and for that, we are truly grateful. He's mentored and taught our new employees on how to specifically maintain, how to diagnose, and how to repair our buses. Fernando is described by his supervisors as reliable, trustworthy, and a joy to work with. Fernando is not able to join us today, but we will personally thank him this week and present to him his 35 years of service award. Thank you, Fernando, for your commitment to MST and for the 35 years of hard work to our customers and to the communities that we serve.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, please extend that congratulations to Mr. Fernando Manansala for 35 years. Anyone, I know that it's obviously when you stay in an organization for 30 years, it speaks highly of that individual, that their commitment, but also of the organization and the culture. So thank you for being those great leaders, to be able to have a good work environment where people want to stay here for 35 years, which is a really positive. Directors, any comments for Mr. Fernando Manansala?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm sure that Fernando has seen quite a bit of change in technology over 35 years, and to be a mechanic for that long, and I appreciate him still here and also keeping up with the times. I'm sure that's really difficult at time you have to go back to school or whatever it is to make sure that our buses are running well, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, Director Albert, for that. Any other comments from the directors? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. Please extend our gratitude.
Looks like Mr. Emilio had his hand up.
Sorry about that. Excuse me, Madam Chair. I would just like to also recognize Fernando for 35 years. In one of my other lives, as someone in 35 years of some in 35 years of education are ready to call it quits. And just want to recognize Fernando for being there, and for MST. It's a super job, and I really appreciate it. I mean, I'm sure all the board does, but that's my comment.
Thank you, Director. Really appreciate those comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is item 4-3, receive staff report on activities related to the COVID-19 pandemic, incident response and recovery planning to date, and provide direction if needed. And I will turn this over to Mr. Sidor.
Thank you, Chair. And if we are, there we go. He beat me to it. Good job, Scott. This will be our, I don't know how many months we've been talking about this. Too many months. But here's our latest update, and I even have updates to my update because things keep changing. So next slide. So that's not small enough for you. So Monterey County transmission rate continues to be at a high level. We've had a 29% statewide increase in cases. And the new variants number 4 and now 5 continue to surge. Recently, it's been reported that Monterey County has the highest transmission rate of COVID currently on the Central Coast. And the county positivity rates, case rates, and hospitalizations are increasing in a pretty steep fashion. So that's not necessarily good news. We've had, well, these were stats that I had as of June 30th. 8 new cases in June, and that was the largest monthly increase since January 2022. To date, as of June 30th, we were at 76 cases. Today, I believe I was told we are now at 84 cases, I believe. So we've just, in the past 2 weeks, I've had another 8 cases. And MB, like to date, is at 21 cases. So the good news, we do, when we're notified of these cases, we have video on board all of our buses and at our facilities. When we're notified of a case, if the employee was in work at a time when they may have been communicable or infectious, we do review that, and we've not been able to see that there's been any contacts made with MST passengers. And no cases are traced back to the MST's work environment. So with that dramatic increase, we have, some of you may have noticed some of the signage as you walked into our building here. We are strongly encouraging wearing of face masks in our work environment here in the offices and on board our buses, and our management team is taking the lead, and we are committed to keeping our masks on in the workplace, setting the example for the rank and file employees. Some good news on this Saturday, July the 9th, we had 100% of the MST fleet is now outfitted with electric ionizer air purification systems on board all of our buses. This is comparable to what we already have in our major facilities, like the facility that we're in now. What this does on board the bus is that it electrostatically charges particles that are inside the vehicle. They then are drawn together, and those microparticles are then caught by our high efficiency filters, or the weight drives them to the ground and gravity drives them to the floor, and they're rinsed out at the end of every night. So just another tool in our toolbox to help stop and slow the spread. We currently still continue to have 3 MST employees out of compliance with the vaccination mandate who continue to go through the progressive disciplinary process. No terminations to date as a result of lack of compliance with the vaccine mandate. We've continuing our vaccination free day passes. So with proof of vaccination, you can get a free day pass on board MST. and our MST rides trips, and closing in on 1,000 of those overall being passed out. Maybe next month or month after, we'll be able to report that. And looking past COVID, we're looking towards implementing the better bus network in December of this year. So we had been waiting to see that we had the employees available. We think that we're going to be able to meet that need in December of this year to begin implementation. Next slide. So here's just some of the stats that are out there. You can see what's happening with the case rates, hospitalizations, and other Monterey County stats over the last 90 days. Just, going up from left to right is bad. Going down from left to right is good. Those numbers are going the wrong way. Next slide. Our ridership, again, going up is good. It's continuing to go up, although still well below where we were pre-COVID. ADA MST rides program is growing at a faster rate than our fixed route, but we still continue week to week, continue to grow. Next slide. And here is based on a percentage, looking at the 3-year average prior to COVID, looking at the average number of hours of service provided and average number of passenger trips. You can see we've brought hours down. We were bringing hours down as we were struggling with employment. We'll see those hours come back up in July with the implementation of the trolleys. And then with the implementation of the better bus network, we should see those hours come back. And we do know that the one thing that drives ridership the most is providing more service gets more people to ride the service. So we're looking forward to be in a position where we can provide more service. Our ridership, though, is still being impacted, not just by service hours, but by actually people working and going to school. College enrollments continue to be down. Hospitality employment is down. And we no longer have our contract with the Defense Language Institute that was providing a lot of trips for us. As we implement the better bus network, there may be opportunities there to restore services as employment and as partners come back on board. Next slide. CARES, CRISA, and ARPA funds are currently, we have expended and have been reimbursed for all of our CARES, CRISA, and ARPA funds. So there are no more federal relief funds. That's the good news is that no one can take away anything that we've already spent. So as Congress comes in with the new budget proposals, any clawbacks, they won't be able to take anything away from us because it's all been spent. The bad news is it's all been spent. Next slide, please. But the good news is we've been banking our local funds while using the CARES and CRISA funds. And so we have a very healthy cash budget. We did have to note in the budget that you approved last year, we did draw down $5 million out of our reserves. That's on purpose. And we'll probably draw down more next year and maybe even more the year after that. So we have several, at least 2 years worth of reserves here that we can draw down on as we wait for the economy to restore and hospitality to come back. So we're being very conservative. You can see the glide path down isn't too steep, but it is heading down. So next slide. Any discussion or direction based on that? That concludes my report. And I see we have a question from Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Carl, for providing all that information and some of those highlights. Obviously, as you mentioned, there's some trending up in some of the COVID cases. As we see, there's been a lot of activity, more celebrations. We just went through the 4th of July and anticipate that there's more people wanting to go out and socialize. So we do have a comment. Director Burnett, you have your hand up.
Yes, Carl, could you put your first slide back up again?
The first slide. Scott, can you restart the presentation? Scott, are you there? He's in another room.
Okay.
But, did you have a specific question?
What can I share?
Yes, I did. The statistic that you showed, the 29% statewide increase in countywide COVID
Oh,
cases.
that's a fumble, grammatical fumble on my part. It's
Okay. Okay.
statewide.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It originally said 29% countywide, and I rechecked my numbers, and I managed to put in statewide and did not delete countywide. I apologize for that typo.
No problem. Thank you very much. Statistics are difficult to manipulate sometimes, so thank you.
Thank you, Director Burnett, for catching that. So 29%
Statewide increase.
Yeah.
And then delete the word countywide, and we're good.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments from our directors on the information provided under our COVID-19 overview? Okay, then I don't see any. Hold on, let me get back. Any other comments from our public in regards to the information provided by Mr. Sidoric? Okay, it's seeing none. I don't see any comments. Okay, thank you, Carl, for that information. So we'll move on then to our next item on the agenda, which at this time is a public hearing. So we have a public hearing for the MST bus fare change. And today we'll receive the presentation by staff. We'll open up the public hearing, then we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll come back to the Board of Directors for action on that. So I will turn this over to Mrs. Lisa Reinheimer, and information on the packet is on page 35.
Great, thank you, Chair and members of the board. Indeed, I will be presenting the bus fare policy. This is a sort of a continuation from the discussion the board had in April. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through a little bit of background, the desired outcome that we want to see, some available options to us, and then finally the recommendation. Next. So for a little bit of background, our existing fare structure was established in May of 2012 as we implemented a new GFI fare box system on board our buses. And it's pretty confusing, not only to explain, but also for passengers to understand. It's based on distance and the type of service provided. Local, primary, regional, and commuter. We no longer have the commuter routes. Those were the longer distance ones to San Jose at $12. The regionals are at $3.50 a regular fare, primary at $2.50 and $1.50 for the locals. And these fares are a little bit higher than our peers and probably not where we should be. So at the last board meeting, at the April board meeting, there was a question about how the fare change would impact our collection of fares overall. Would this be a benefit to MST in terms of revenue generated? And so I asked our data specialist, our data guru, Emma Patel. She is in our planning department to take a look at the how bus fares impact ridership. And she did a fantastic job, and I've included that as part of an attachment starting on page 39 of your board packet. But the bottom line is that fares are largely irrelevant when it comes to changes in ridership. And the thing that's more impactful for our customers is frequency. So she took a look at that, and based on the implementation of the Better Bus Network, which provides more frequent service to the vast majority of our passengers, that's the thing that will increase ridership and then therefore increase fares to the benefit of the organization. So moving on to the next slide. So what we wanted to do, given what you just heard, is to present to you an overall fare structure that will encourage and increase ridership, is more comparable to our peers in the Central Coast and other areas, are simple not only to explain to our passengers, but also to have our passengers understand them more thoroughly. And then also support the Better Bus Network for implementation later this fall, winter. Next slide, please.
Winter.
So, you know, we could keep the existing fare structure, but it doesn't accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. And we want to align our fare structure closer to our peers. We're a little bit high. Let's get us back to a place that's, you know, more compatible and comparable. So we also went out to public outreach to get feedback as per your direction in April. We conducted an online survey in both English and in Spanish through Slido, and we held 2 public hearings noticed in the local papers, one in Greenfield, one in Marina, in late June. It was a lovely conversation with myself and the customer service reps who attended, but no one else. And feel like the online survey that we conducted and pushed out through social media was a much better tool for us to get feedback from the public. So we developed a bus fare policy that I'll present here next. And before I do that, I just wanted to highlight some of the responses that we received in that Slido survey. We received a total of 244, 11% in Spanish, 89% in English. It's a really good response rate for a Slido survey. Next. So we asked the question for the regular fares, those ones that are 150, 250, and 350, depending on the route. Would you support or agree with a change to $2 for 2 hours? So this is a time-based fare instead of a distance-based fare. And overwhelmingly, the responses that we got support that change. Next slide. And then we asked the same question for our discount fares. The discount fares are for our Measure Q populations, the elderly, people with disabilities, and veterans. Would they support a change to $1 for 2 hours? So essentially 50% off. And that was even more support. And that speaks to the efforts that we make for our Measure Q populations. Next slide. And then just as an aside, I felt like it was an interesting thing to know, and for the board's information, we wanted to get a sense in that survey how people are doing with the contactless credit debit card payment system, because we have those on board and it's a demo for us right now. We wanted to know whether the respondents felt like it was, you know, a good thing, a mediocre thing, or maybe they didn't know about it. So a lot of people said, yes, it's really convenient. Some, I didn't even know it was available. My credit card doesn't have a contactless symbol, or I don't even have a credit card. I wish I didn't have a credit card. And then some people said, no, it's inconvenient to tap on and off, because that's how the fare is currently charged, is on distance based. So you have to tap off again to get the correct fare. So with a $2 change, you just tap on once and you're good to go, because it goes for 2 hours. So we thought that was interesting and supports our continuation of a contactless fare payment scheme. Next slide. So we've got some options. We have established a fare structure for all of our services, and I believe it's on the next slide. But it also introduces a new van pool subsidy and supports the action plan of your board for this year. And we've also developed a policy to support that fare structure. And I updated it from the April board meeting, and you can see the track changes in your packet. Really, it's about adding in the van pool program. So next slide. So here is more comprehensive look at all of the fares, from the regular just single ride to a daily go pass, a weekly go pass, a monthly go pass, and promotional fares. So not only are we reducing overall the amount of the single ride, we're also reducing the daily, weekly, and monthly go pass rates. So the daily is currently 10, it would reduce to 6. Weekly is currently 50, it would reduce to 20. Monthly go pass, depending on which type you get and depending on which type of service you need. See, this is why it's so complicated, right? It's $90, $95 or $190. We would consolidate those all to a single monthly Go Pass rate of $70. And then with the discount rate for Measure Q passengers. Let's see, additionally, we added the van pool subsidy down at the bottom, $450 per month per van pool group. This is to also support the Better Bus Network and get to areas that we currently are not going to be able to get, such as Big Sur. And some of the outer lying areas where people still feel like they need services, but a van pool program is a little bit more suitable. We've also reduced the group discounts depending on how many people join the group discount. It can be upwards towards 120 to 130 a month. So we're reducing it down to 52 and 45. The more passes you buy, the cheaper it is. Next slide, please. So today the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing and hear comments on the proposed changes. This will be your last and final public hearing to conclude the public outreach portion of it. And then the recommendation is to approve the new fare policy, which includes that entire suite of fares. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and step aside to hear public comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Reinheim, for providing all that information. Looks like I need some more. Thank you for that. So at this time, I will open the public hearing. And if we can start with members of the public, and then I will go to our directors if there's any comments. So any members of the public wish to make a comment on the MST bus fare changes for a public hearing today? And I am not seeing any members.
Yeah.
Oh, we do. Okay. Mr. Fink?
Thank you.
Hold on. You want me to hold it for you?
Thank you. Couple of things that I wanted to inquire about. I currently am using a super monthly discount Go Pass, 31 days for $95. My first question is the $70 proposed monthly fare. Would that apply to all passes, both regular and disabled? And my second question is, if these fare changes are adopted today, when do they go into effect?
Thank you, Mr. Fink, for those two questions. We will have, if there's, I think we can address those, Mrs. Reinheimer.
Thank you for the first question about the super monthly pass for the eligible groups, elderly, people with disabilities, and veterans. That would be 30. Thank you, Scott. You're awesome. That would be $35 instead of the $95 for the gentleman. And the implementation is no later than our Better Bus Network implementation, but it could be sooner depending on if things align the way that they would need to align in order to implement it. So it's no later than implementation of the Better Bus Network, but it could be sooner.
And that would
So we're looking at December of this year.
So December of 2022. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Fink, and thank you for the responses. So I will, any other members of the public? Mr. Sloan Campy?
Yes, Sloan Campy, Transportation Programs Manager for Cal State Monterey Bay. Historically speaking, CSU Monterey Bay, along with the other college, two of the other colleges in the area, works with MST on a contractual basis to provide free access to MST's network through using our for students, staff, and faculty using their Otter IDs. So a fare policy change like this, wouldn't directly per se affect them. However, I'm gonna let that go. However, we recognize, and myself having worked on this plan, that this fare policy is imperative for the plan to function as it's intended. And CSUMB is generally supportive of this fare policy change, and we feel that it's much simpler for the community at large as well. We're also supportive of it because we understand that it would be having at least 3 routes serve MST. 3 routes serve CSUMB provided by MST routes 17, 18, and 25. And we're also aware that this plan would eliminate line 16, which is heavily desired by the CSUMB community, but we would want to work with you on solutions for providing transit needs as we can. So generally, we are very supportive of this fare policy, and we look forward to the new network being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sloan, for those comments, and thank you for addressing the support from CSUMB, but also some of the challenges. Okay, any other members of the public wish to comment on item 5-1? Okay, so we don't have any other members of the public here, and then I'm looking on Zoom. We don't have anyone on Zoom. So at this point, I am going to close the public hearing and bring it back for comments from the directors. So I will bring it back to, there's a couple of comments, and I saw Director Barron had his hand up, and then Director Worthy, and then Director Labar.
Thank you, Chair. First, a shout out to staff for, I know, doing all this work with the contactless payment system over the course of the past couple of years. Clearly leads to, clearly is really important to get to this fare structure. So thank you for all the work that you've done. My question is this to staff. If I am a regular bus user and I don't buy a monthly pass, but I do on the first of the month, start using my credit card to tap in and tap out, will my charges be capped at the monthly fare of $70 if I'm just sort of a run-of-the-mill bus rider, or will I accumulate $2 charges every day, or $4 worth of charges there and back every day?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, you would still continue to enjoy the benefits of fare capping. So you'll never pay more than the daily, weekly, or monthly rate.
So when I got to, using this example, so when I got to like my 18th or 19th trip during the month of July, the system would just stop charging me the $2.
They would charge you $0.
Great. Thank you so much. That's a great outcome, and I appreciate all the work you've done to make this system a reality.
I'm sure the customers will appreciate it too.
Definitely great benefit. Thank you for that question and clarification, Director Barron. I will move now to Director Worthy.
Thank you, Board Member Barron, because that was also one of my questions, along with one other. Will this affect the on-call? Because I know we still have the on-call system in place as well. So how will the fares work for that? Will it be capped as well? And because I do have a few residents that use the on-call system on a regular basis.
Okay, so this would be for fixed route services. And currently we do not have the contactless fare payment system on the on-calls. Separate from the contactless fare payment system, the reason why we went out to public hearing is because our public hearing policy requires us to go out to public comments if fares are being proposed to be higher. Now, in this case, overall fares are lower, but there are some that are 150 routes, the line 3, the on-calls, And also we have existing 75 cents discount for Measure Q populations for the senior and veterans lines. Those are the lines 61, 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95. So those routes would have a higher fare as a result of this. So in implementing the Better Bus Network, the on-calls are slated to go away anyway. So the new fixed route circulators within the city, South County cities would have a $2 for 2 hours type of fare. Now, that being said, because they're so, especially in the South County cities, because they're so small, 2 hours can probably get you a couple rides.
Or you could take a trip, go shopping, reboard.
Yeah.
And not pay when you board.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I hope that answers your question.
No, that does. Thank you. Thank you very much. Some of it will, as you said, it's going away. So, but I just was interested currently where we're at on that. So thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you, Director Worthy, for that. And it helps to be able to clarify what we have existing and some of the changes that are coming. So next is Director Labar.
Thank you, Chair. I had the same question as Director Bering, so that was already answered. And I just want to say I really like this fare structure, and I think it'll be very beneficial to the agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Labar. Any other comments before we come to for a motion for an action?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have one.
Director Gagliotti.
Yeah, first of all, is that the daily charges are in line with my own kind of personal experience with Portland. This is about that, about $5 a day, but that's for the entire system. So I think that's great. And in the analysis, it shows that as customer experience grows, ridership grows, and then revenues, that's the anticipation. But we actually are on the other side of this, and you say it in the report, we're cutting kind of our revenue side almost in half, right? I mean, so and some of our ridership, actually, I would say probably a lot of our ridership has some inelasticity. I mean, people are going to be riding regardless of really what what it is. So if we don't see that ridership go up, are we cutting into our revenues? And then how do we make that deficit?
Well, what we're reporting through our on page 42.
Yeah.
Is we're projecting out 3 years through our existing fare structure, because we are over time, giving our passengers what they want, more frequent service, that will automatically increase ridership and increase the fares. Even without doing anything, but with lowering the fares, we assumed that lowering of fares had the opposite effect of when you increase fares, which is lower ridership.
Yeah.
So we're and you're right, there is very little elasticity for fare changes with regard to ridership.
Right.
So we assumed that because overall they were coming down, ridership would increase sort of the similar amount as to if we were to lower it.
Right.
So there's a lot at play here.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And we've had experience in all sorts of different schemes in terms of trying to figure out this very question. Back when Director Albert may remember this, back when Carmageddon was certainly going to happen with the Highway 68 roundabout, we experimented with lowering our monthly pass to $13 to increase ridership. It actually didn't happen.
Yeah.
It just moved people from paying at the fare box to buying a monthly pass, because getting $13 is a lot easier than 95 or 190.
Yeah.
So that's an experience there. Now, when we did our free stuff with grant opportunities in Salinas on the line 40s on the weekends, we increased ridership because it was free.
Right.
So there are so many factors that go into it. I can't with any 100% certainty tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Sure.
But what we've seen in the past through studies in the nation. If you increase frequency, you increase ridership and therefore increase fares.
Yeah.
That's what I can tell you.
No, and I think, I think the analysis holds true. And I personally, I'm one of the ones who I buy a bus pass for my kid every month, and so I love these favorite too. So, that was just my one comment. They just had a question, and you guys have looked at it. So, thank you.
Thank you for that comment, and thank you for the explanation. I know it's a little bit difficult, Lisa, but I think we have been trying. I think this has been a over 2 year process to get to where we're at now, and really doing a lot of staff has done a lot of obviously analyzing, and I was glad to see some of the survey responses. Although unfortunately, I was a little saddened to see that there was no one at the actual on-site meetings, in-person meetings. But it was good to at least have some of those surveys back that really do support what's being presented to us today as well. I did see there was a hand up by Director Burnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Humans resist change, and when there are multiple changes, they resist even harder. That seems to be my experience, and I'm just wondering. So we've changed, or we're about to implement a better bus network, and we're also going to add a changed fare structure. I'm just wondering the timing of all of this. Would it have perhaps been better to implement the network to see what the net effect on ridership is, and then contemplate a rate change, or maybe do the rate change and then do the better? I'm just wondering, did that factor into your overall analysis? Thank you.
Yes, indeed, it is a factor. And I would say we would have to implement this fare change before the Better Bus Network, because the Better Bus Network relies heavily on connections. So in order to make, for example, a trip from Greenfield to Marina work, we are timing the line 23 at the line 20 connection at the Salinas Transit Center. And so in order for somebody to make that logical connection with $2 for 2 hours, they can go from Greenfield to Marina and pay that $2. Doing it the opposite would not make any sense for the customer. And yeah, we've discussed how to implement this fare change beforehand. There are a lot of different factors across the organization that would need to come into alignment beforehand. And I don't know that we're necessarily opposed to it, but we need to really think about it in terms of, which departments really, need to put some extra attention to changing the technologies that we have existing on board the buses to make it work. So we know we have to get it done by the Better Bus Network. If we can get it done before, that's great.
Thank you, Lisa, for those comments. If there aren't any other comments, I'm not seeing any other comments from the directors.
Mr. Emilio had his hand.
Mr. I don't see your hand. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. I usually throw.
Go ahead.
Hey, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'd be willing to make a motion on this.
Okay, so you're ready to make a motion? I just have a comment before we make the motion, and thank you for being ready to make the motion. I also want to just say thank you so much for staff. I know this is obviously coming before us is something that's a great and significant change for MST and for our riders as well. Obviously, it's something that has been studied and analyzed for the last 2 years, and it's now that we're coming to fruition. I mean, it actually includes other elements that we've been discussing for the past 2 to 3 years on how we make this better bus network, and how we really support our ridership that's needed within our jurisdiction. So I just want to say thank you to staff for really putting a lot of the energy and outreach as well to make sure that we do have feedback from our community in terms of some of the changes. As we all know, with changes are going to come some hiccups, and we have to be ready for those. But ultimately, this is, what we're being presented today is a better benefit for our ridership, and we hope to be able to see those numbers increase over the time of the three-year time span. So thank you so much. Okay, so Director Emilio, I will turn it over to you for your motion.
Okay, thank you. Approve the, we've already received the presentation, the conduct the public hearing, but C was approve the new bus policy, and that's the motion, approve the new bus fare policy.
Labar, second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Emilio, and a second by Director R. Can we get roll call, please?
Jeanette, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, so first, motion made by Director Emilio, seconded by Director Labar. Director Barron, do you approve?
Yes.
Director Gagliotti?
Yes.
Director Worthy?
Yes.
Director Martinez?
Yes.
Director Labar?
Aye.
Director Burnett?
Yes.
Director Albert?
Yes.
Director Emilio?
Yes.
Director Barrera?
Yes.
Director Carbone?
Aye.
Director Pacheco?
Yes.
Director Velasquez?
Aye.
And Director Alejo?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you and congratulations. So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is action items, and we have two of those today. The first is approved procurement policy, and I will turn this over again to Mrs. Reinheimer, and information on this item is on page 51.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. Again, Lisa Reinheimer, Assistant General Manager. MST's existing procurement policy and procedures was established in 2016, and in practice, policies really should be established at your board level, leaving the implementing procedures to staff. We hired, so recognizing this, we hired back Heidi Quinn, who was formerly with DeLay and Laredo and now is with Nolan Hammerly, Etienne and Haas for assistance with developing this procurement policy, as she had previously firsthand experience with procurements and contracts with MST. She's in the audience today and can help answer any legal questions that you may have. So what we're proposing is to separate the policy portion from the procedures portion so that we can begin developing a more robust and comprehensive procedures manual for staff to implement your policy. So we largely kept the existing procurement policy and procedure as is, but separated them out so that the procedures are out of there, and the description, the purpose, the persons affected, approvals and regulatory framework, terms and conditions and standards of conduct, conflicts of interest and procurement standards stay in the policy, in the new policy that we're proposing, and taking out the procedures, as I mentioned. But also included in the new policy is a section on unsolicited proposals, where if MST were to receive an unsolicited proposal, we would be required to publish that proposal and allow others to submit comments or competing proposals to MST. So should the board approve this new procurement policy, staff will then begin creating a procurement manual, robust, comprehensive for MST staff to implement across the board. So with that, I stop and answer any questions that you may have. And again, Heidi is here as backup and support.
Thank you, Ms. Reinheimer, for that information and for the information provided also in terms of the policies and procedures on procurement. So I will, if we can do this, let me take it out for any public comments, and then we'll come back to comments from the directors. So any members of the public want to comment on item 6-1? Okay, seeing none in the chambers and seeing none via Zoom, then I will bring it back. Any members, any board of directors have any questions or comments on the procurement policy and procedures recommendation. Mr. Gagliardi? Director
Yeah, no,
Gagliardi?
and I had one, it was specifically in the unsolicited proposal policy. In the case that an unsolicited proposal is shared, we put out to comment, and we actually solicit the extra bids, and there are no responses. What then, how is that then qualified, what is that? Is that effectively an exclusive negotiation kind of condition?
Possibly, if it's something that MST would like to do, if MST does not have any interest in pursuing an unsolicited proposal, there would be no contract. It would, an unsolicited proposal that does not get any comments would not automatically become a contract.
Not, I mean, sorry, but not necessarily a contract, but that proposal, that would open up maybe a negotiation or policy or not policy, procedure, or at least the kind of the obligation to hear it and air it with the rest of the, I guess, the board at that point, or staff. No.
Yeah, yes, so say we get an unsolicited proposal.
Yeah.
It's something that MST wants to do. We would publicize it, allow others to comment or offer competing proposals.
Yep, totally agree.
And depending on the authority level, it would come back to the board for consideration.
Okay. So in the case that it's not wanted, would we just say no?
I think that would be the prudent thing to do.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Okay, that's probably the better way to ask that question.
Thank you for that, but they still have to be just a comment on that, but they still have to be publicized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other comments from directors? Director Albert?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have a question on the contract procurements not required a formal competitive bidding. I think that's on page 66 of our package.
Thank you.
I'm just curious that we don't have to have any formal competitive bidding between 2,500 to 100,000. And in the policy, it says at least 3 quotes are required. What happens if we don't get 3 quotes?
Yeah, that can be a challenge for sure. We have to document it and make our best efforts to get 3
I
quotes.
see. So if it's just 1 quote and this policy doesn't preclude us not to give it that 1 low bid, it's the only one that has put a quote in.
So say we want something for approximately $50,000.
Right.
We would be required to get 3 quotes to know whether or not there's a competitive range. If
Correct.
we only get 1 quote or 2 quotes, we can do our research and decide that, through that research, it's competitive, or we can document that we asked people to give us a quote and they declined.
The only reason I bring that up is that in some other organizations, they have to re-advertise again. And then once they re-advertise and they still only get 1, that's what we go with. So I tried to look for that inside this policy and I didn't see it. So
Right, I think that would
that's what we have to do.
inch its way into the procurement manual.
Okay, thanks.
I think that applies for some of the public works projects. Yeah. That
Exactly.
you have to go out if you only get 1. Yeah. So on that same note, though, Lisa, in that same area where Director Albert was mentioning, there's just a correction on that A where it says where the procurement does not equal or exceed 3,000, but then it has a 2,500. Is that?
Is that on which page are you
On page 14? Sorry, page 66 of the board.
Okay, so that's the old policy. So the one that you're considering is the new policy that would supersede the page 66. So the new policy starts on page.
Where is that?
On page 64.
I don't see
Page 93.
Thank you.
Chapter 2. So we provided you,
With the
there was
old
no ability for us to do a strike through because the changes were so great.
one.
It would have just been a mess. So we gave you the old policy. And then we gave you the new policy as a separate attachment.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So any other board of directors have comments? Okay, seeing none, Lisa, I do have just for clarification, since we have the old policy and then the new ones, I just want to make sure, because I know in reading some of to my page, there was a portion that talks about the DBE and then the SBE, MSBE and SLBE. Can we
The what?
can we make sure we can put those in parentheses, but make sure we define those. And then also in that same note, when we talk about DBE, I know that we have a whole policy on that, but that also includes minority and women business enterprises, own businesses, correct? Just to make sure it's also included within that DBE. If not, that we can spell it out.
Yes,
as well.
not a problem.
Okay. And then my only other comment was, and I guess it's on the old policy, which is the single source procurements and the single available source. On those two portions seem to be similar. If we can put it under the sole source, but then kind of define the different single available source, and but some of that language seemed to be repetitive. So I don't know if it can be combined. I just was trying to figure out the difference between the available and the sole source procurement. I know what the sole source procurement is, but just sole source available is a little confusing.
So on page 101, I think by providing you with both the old and the new policy as separate attachments, Staff thought we were being clear, but it seems like some of the board members read the old policy and have questions about the existing policy.
Yeah.
We do have on page 101, what we call sole source procurements.
Yes, on page 95.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. Got it, Carl.
So what we're asking the board to approve is starting on page 93 through page 108 is the proposed procurement policy.
Okay. Got it.
And the much longer old policy is what was a policy procedure document that we say we want to get rid of that. We're replacing.
With this.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Apologize for any confusion
Yeah,
that
thank
may
you.
have been generated.
Thank you for that. Then I just want to clarify then my question on the DBE women business owned, if that's on page 99, if we can just clarify that it does include under the DBE section, the MWBE as well.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Any other directors, any comments? Okay, so seeing that there is no comments and we do need a motion or action to approve the procurement policy.
Did we take it out to?
Oh,
public?
we did. We took it out to the public.
Oh, that's right, at the beginning.
Yeah, at the
Okay,
beginning.
move to approve.
A second.
So we have a motion made by Director Albert and second by Director Gagliotti. Roll call, please, Jeanette.
I'm taking myself off mute. Okay, so the motion is to approve procurement policy, which is attachment 2, starting on page 93. Motion by Albert, seconded by Gagliotti. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Aye.
Director Worthy,
Yes.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
Director Emilio,
Yes.
Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
Director Velasquez,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to item 6-2, and this is also Mrs. Lisa Reinheimer. So authorized general manager CEO to enter into a contract with Stantec Architecture Inc. in the amount not to exceed 1.5 million for a fixed facility analysis, preliminary architecture, planning, design, and environmental services for the Salinas Operations and Maintenance Facility. I will turn it over to Mrs. Reinheimer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This year's action plan calls for the initiation of a fixed facility review of a new or rehabilitated Salinas Operations and Maintenance Facility. Initial planning work is proposed in your budget with $1.5 million of funding from the Measure X program, which supports Salinas Valley facilities. This planning work is the first step in meeting the demands of future and existing service in Salinas as well as beyond. Our existing MST directly operated facility is at Victor Way in Salinas and has outgrown its original size requirements from back in the early 80s. In addition, our paratransit and contracted services need a more permanent home, which are currently located at Joe Lloyd Way on the former Fort Ord and leased from the Army. And recently, the base commander at the Presidio, former base commander at the Presidio, communicated a desire for MST to vacate that Army leased property in the next 3 years. So with all those things in mind, MST solicited proposals from consulting firms with a scope of work which includes investigating an option to combine the MST directly operated facility with contracted services onto a larger site for the future. The scope of work also includes preliminary engineering, design, site location options, a fixed facility review, which is required under the Federal Transit Administration, as well as scope, including the environmental documentation. So we received 2 proposals and recommend awarding the contract to Stantec. Stantec scored higher than the competing firm by our review team, and the amount is not to exceed $1,591,627. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Frankheimer, for that. So let me, directors, if we don't mind, let me take it out to the public first to see if we have any public comments, and then we'll bring it back for comments from the directors. So at this time, any member of the public want to make any comments on item 6-2? Okay, I don't see any here in the chambers, and then I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom. Okay, so I'm seeing there's no public comments. I will bring it back to directors on comments, and I do see Director Carbone has questions. Director Carbone?
Yes, thank you. Just a question, Lisa, was that 3 years or 2 years for the that the site that the commander has communicated desire to see the MST vacate the property in 2 years?
3 years.
3 years, okay. In the report, it was 2, just a correction
My
there.
apologies, I meant 3.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure he'd much rather us out of there in 2 years, but he did say 3.
Thank you, Director Carbone, for clarifying that. Any other comments? I do see Director Burnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to find out, actually, a couple of questions. So the scope of work, is it going to include, I guess, an analysis of the current site on Victor Way as to whether or not the soils around it, environmental cleanup is necessary for, is there any kind of rehabilitation necessary due to the handling of chemicals and fuels and things like that? And then the second question is has it been determined that the new facility is going to be relocated on the exact same site, or are you looking for an additional site? And that also goes for the one off Joe Lloyd Way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the question. Yes, in the environmental documentation, we will have to disclose any environmental impacts, which if there are known chemical spills or leakages of underground fuel tanks, yes, we would have to disclose that. And if we're going to be digging, obviously we'll have to clean it up. And we're very familiar with cleaning up things, as we just recently cleaned up our property over there in Fort Ord. And then in terms of site size, our current site size at the Victor Way location is 2.3 acres. And what they have at our contracted services location is 3.2 acres. So we need more than the 2.3. Our existing facility would not be able to handle a combined contracted services as well as MST directly operated services. So we would have to look around, see if there are properties that are in Salinas that would accommodate a larger size. So that part of the review, the fixed facility review, is to take a look at available options within the city of Salinas and the surrounds.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Any additional questions? Director Burnett, we're good.
Well, I guess I would have to fulfill my duty and make sure that the areas in Marina would also be considered or under consideration for possible site location.
We'll take that into advisement.
Thank you, Director Burnett. And I have a question for Director Albert.
Yeah. I'm just curious about the two architect firms. Are they local or are they out there? And is their firms directly related, or their expertise is in transportation, architecture? Or,
yes.
So that's one of the reasons why we didn't get any proposals for local architects. I'm talking about Monterey County, not so much Santa Cruz County. That's the reason.
Yeah, I would say that's largely correct. They're trying to think if there are any subs that are local. I have to go back and double check.
That's okay.
Denise Duffy and Associates.
Yeah, RPS.
Yeah, they seem to have the corner.
They just don't have the expertise, local expertise.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to add on to that a little bit further, Stantec was the firm that helped slow RTA design, and their building is now constructed. So they have, really good knowledge and understanding of it as to smaller transit agencies and our facility needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Any other comments from directors before? Okay, so seeing no hands up on Zoom and here, I just have a quick question, Lisa, just in terms of obviously the time frame. There's going to be extensive work in terms of environmental operations and looking at site identification. What is the timeline? What is the projected timeline for completion? And then also my second question to that is, as we're moving forward with, obviously there is already the relocation that's needed. What is the funding sources that we're identifying or we have existing or future funding sources for this project?
Okay, so in terms of schedule and timeline, part of the scope will help us develop that. When we purchased the property to when we cut the ribbon for the South County facility, that was about 4 or 5 years. This one is a little bit more complicated because we don't have a site available to us at the moment. So that'll take a little bit more time. In general, transportation projects take a long time to build, especially, larger, complicated ones, especially when you don't have property available to you. So I don't know, 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
So that was a schedule question.
So we would, during that time, it was the former base commander who recently left, gave this verbal deadline to me. So we would be continuing to negotiate with future base commanders to continue to extend our lease on the former portal. It's not like we've received an eviction notice. What I received was a verbal notice that this is what they would like to have happen. And so there'll be continued negotiations. If we're not ready to go, if we don't have a place to relocate, we will continue to work with the Army to say, look, we're making progress with this board. It's not like we're ignoring you, but this is going to take time to move. And we've made significant leasehold improvements to that piece of property. And so we have some leverage back and forth with the Army under the existing agreement on when we need to go and what's involved in that. So more to come. It's not a hard 2 years for us to be out of there, but they've signaled to us where they'd like us to be, and it's not there. So.
And it's 3 years, Carl.
3
just for
years.
the clarification. It's
Thank you.
3 years, and so we didn't have anything in writing. It's just no.
No, it was a verbal notification, but it got my attention.
So there was a second part of that question too, that I'd like to provide information for in terms of funding sources. For this initial planning work, we're proposing the Measure X program. And that program helps to leverage state and federal funding. So we'll be going after state and federal funding for actual implementation, construction, and what have you. But as I've noticed, in the years that I've been in transportation, the closer you get to when you actually need construction money, the more the funding comes in. So at this early stage, it's hard to get construction funding without any planning done.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, Ms. Reinheimer, for that. So
John,
Well, it's really to I wanted to build on something you had asked, quick. So if I may, Chair.
yes, go ahead.
It was the existing site, the Army site, you said there's 2.1 acres and that's just not going to do it for us. There's just no way to make that work. Meaning that in the off chance that we could convince the Army to sell that piece of property, that we could not.
We would have to take out over more property at that location in order to be able to handle both facilities needs.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that note. Okay, so directors, I don't see any additional comments. So this is an action item. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Stantec Architecture.
Move to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion by Director Albert and a second by Director Gagliardi. Can we get roll call, please, Danette?
Okay. Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliardi,
Aye.
Director Worthy,
Yes.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
Director Emilio,
Yes.
oh, okay, thank you. Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Aye.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
Director Velasquez,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. So we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. Thank you for discussion on that, directors. We'll move on to item 7, which is reports and information. And the reports, we have the reports provided by staff in terms of just our general manager report, the federal legislative advocacy report, state legislative advocacy, staff trip reports, and correspondence. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sedora.
Well, you have my board report. We did talk in the legislative, in the committee before, prior to this, in our state and federal legislative updates, just to make sure that everybody's aware. Last week, we received a notice of 2 separate state grants, one a $2.5 million budget appropriation for the SURF, carried forward by Senator John Laird. And then we also received a $25 million transit intercity capital rail program funding from the state of California for the SURF. Staff suggesting and will be coming back to your board with perhaps a resolution of appreciation to Senator Laird for that $2.5 million appropriation, because there weren't very many of those for transit agencies in the state budget. And then we heard from our federal lobbyist that we received $3 million. We have not received. Congressman Panetta advocated for $3 million for MST in a community project funding, also known as earmarks, that did make it through the committee and will be voted on by the full House in the coming weeks/month. And then yet to go through committee, we have support from Senator Feinstein for a $1 million funding request for the SURF project. And then another $3 million from Senator Padilla for buses and bus facilities comparable to what Congressman Panetta had put forward as well. So that has yet to make it through the Senate Finance Committee, but we'll be continuing to advocate for that. So good news all around. Either we're getting money or people are lining us up for money. So it could be a big year. It's already been a big year, but could even be a bigger year for us depending on when these bills get passed. So good news on those fronts. That concludes my announcements.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carl, for that. And definitely we want to make sure that we thank Senator Laird and also the state for that funding. I personally was able to talk to Senator Laird and thank him personally on behalf of Maryland. He did say he wished he could have given us more money, and I said, it was next year, right? But, but thank you so much for the 2.5 million is obviously, helping us to get closer to that allocation that's needed. Any questions from the directors on any of the reports and information provided in our packet? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to item 8, board reports, comments, and referrals. At this time, any reports on meetings attended by board members of MST? I know we have the reports in our packet. Any board member comments and announcements? Okay, we do have under item 8-2, there is 2 announcements. The CalAct Autumn Conference and Expo is happening November 1st through the 4th in Santa Rosa. Early registration and discounted needs to be in by today, which is July 11th. Also, the CTA Fall Annual Conference and Expo is happening November 15th through the 18th in Ontario, California, and early registration deadline is September 8th. Okay, and any board member referrals for future agendas? Do we have any board member referrals? Okay.
Madam Chair, I just had a comment.
Go ahead, Director Martinez.
I know that I wasn't able to participate in the last meeting, but I want to congratulate yourself and Mayor Marianne Carbone for your new roles as Chair and Vice Chair of MST. And I just really want to thank you, Chair, for today's meeting. The way that you were respectful towards the public and you allowed them and gave them that safe space to be able to come forward with their comments. I really appreciate that, and I really had a really good meeting under your leadership. So keep up the good job, and I'm excited for you 2 ladies taking over MST board.
Thank you so much for those comments, and thank you for those kind words. I appreciate them. Okay. Any additional comments on future referrals and agendas? Okay. So seeing there is no more, so at this time, since there is no other business. Oh, sorry, we do have closed session. Apologize, I'm not going into adjournment yet. So at this time, we'll go into closed session. So at this time, any member of the public that wants to address the board of directors on items related to the closed session, we have one item on our closed session, which is item 9-1, conference with Monterey Salinas Transit and ATU labor contract pursuant to Government Code 54957.6. Any comments on this? The speakers will have 3 minutes. Please be brief and to the point. And if you're joining us on Zoom, please make sure that you raise your hand to be recognized. Any public comments? Okay, I see none.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Fink, you have a question? Go ahead.
In that this says Monterey Salinas Transit and ATU. Does ATU affect the smaller coaches that are operated by MV? Or is this only for the main coach operators of full-time employees of MST?
AQ only represents MST employees, our coach operators and mechanics. That line. AQ has a separate contract with their employees under a different union.
So this session does not in any way affect the MV employed drivers?
That is correct.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you for that question, and thank you for clarification, Mr. Sorik. So at this time, we will adjourn to closed session, and we'll be back for adjournment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board members on Zoom will join the breakout room. Board members in the building will go to our physical breakout room. Easy with the hammer.
I
man.
know,
Easy
I
with the hammer.
know. Oh, my goodness.
You want to take your laptop with you? Or?
No, do you
Okay, yeah, me.
have information?
No, yeah, I got it. We're fine.
Okay.
I just want to, you know what? I'm not sure what's going to come through, so let's end this so it doesn't come through yours. We don't want.
super high. I guess if there's a time we do it, it's.
That's right. That, no, it's an opportunity. That's right. No.
Okay, I'm not gonna turn this on, right? Because you can.
No,
hear
I
me.
just turned it off. Yeah.
Okay. I
I
just
was
can't
ready
see
to-
anyone.
Being turned right there.
Okay, you tell me when we're ready then.
Your one's not there yet.
Closed session room's closed, so everybody should be back.
Excuse
Are you
me?
back?
I said the closed session room's closed, so everybody should be back in
Everybody who's
still
coming
on.
back is back.
Okay. Okay, we're back.
We're back. We're waiting for Mr. Gagliardi, but here he is. Okay, we're back.
Perfect. Okay, so we're returning from closed session and we have a report out. I'll turn it over to our legal counsel, Mr. Michael Loretto, to report out on item 9-1.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Board. The board did meet in closed session for one purpose only, and that was conference with labor negotiators regarding the Monterey Salinas Transit and ATU labor contract pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. In that discussion, it was general regarding costing factors, and general direction was provided, but there is no reportable action at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is item 10. There's attachments on a detailed monthly performance statistics and disbursement journal, for May of 2022. And if there's no other comments from the directors or the public on the attachments, then I will move on to adjourn the meeting with no further business items at 12:14. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Got it.
Have a nice day.
Put on your belt.
Great day.